I'll be reading from Flyer today. It takes place during World War I. And the new one that's just been released, What Our Hearts Remember, takes you through the end of the Depression into World War II. I'm also working on the sequel to that one, which will be about the WASPs, the Women's Air Force Service Pilots. So stop by and say hi, and I hope you enjoy the reading. Springfield, Ohio, September 1912. Young Jack Neely hung for a moment, belly on the sill, before he let go and dropped to the litter-strewn yard. Raising the frayed collar on his coat against the pre-dawn chill, he crept along the side of the shanty and paused at the corner to listen beneath his father's bedroom window. Deep snores told him that the man he called Big Jim, same as everyone else, was sleeping off another real snootful. Probably wouldn't stir till noon, not till the aviation show was over. Of course, Jack knew he'd catch holy hell later for any number of reasons. If this was Friday, Big Jim would strap him bloody for playing hooky. Not that his father put much store in schooling past 6th grade, but he didn't like county people nosing around the place. If it was Sunday, he'd stripe him because he ditched Mass. But this was Saturday, so most likely Big Jim would be sore that Jack wasn't there to hightail it down to O'Donnell's for a pint jar, or to wash up the week's worth of dishes stacked in the kitchen sink. Or he might lay into him for no reason at all, except he was hungover and Jack looked at him sideways. So whether he sneaked out or stayed put made no difference, he reasoned. And at least now, for a few hours, he was scot-free. Tucking his worries into his back pocket, Jack strode toward the fence at the edge of the yard. But he was no more than halfway when a shadowy figure darted out at him from behind a pile of old lumber. He raised a defensive arm, then relaxed and shook his head. "Damn, Rufus," he growled under his breath. "Near scared the pee out of me." He leaned down to give the brown mutt a rough scratch behind one of his lop ears. The dog whined, tail a wag. Jack grabbed his muzzle and hunkered down, eye level. "Hush now, boy. We don't need to announce my comings and goings like I'm the King of England. You can come with me to the gate of the fairgrounds, but no farther. Deal?" Soon as he let go of the dog's muzzle, Rufus answered with a gruff bark. "Ah, hell." Jack shot a wary glance toward the rear of the house. "Let's get out of here." He took off at a run, Rufus fast on his heels. At the fence, Jack clambered over and Rufus squeezed under the broken board near the back gate. Then they were down the alley and across the empty lot, the dog sprinting ahead, waiting, and forging on again, tongue waggling from the side of his open mouth. At the windbreak of tall trees alongside the railroad tracks, Jack slowed to a stop and whistled Rufus back. Alert again, he picked his way forward to the edge of the clearing and peered up the tracks and down. Most times traveling men didn't pay him no mind, but he'd learned the hard way that it wasn't smart to come up sudden-like on folks down on their luck and maybe without all their oars in the water. The full autumn moon had waned, but it was a pearly gray morning, and a band of light lifted the horizon to promise a blue sky. Jack had seen nearly a quarter-mile both ways. Except for a lone jackrabbit and a line of crows sitting along the telephone wire like nuns in a front pew, the coast was clear. "Gonna be a good day for flying," he sang out to Rufus. As he squared his cap, he gave the dog a nudge with his beak. "Come along if you're coming, boy. We're wasting daylight. I got no money, so if I'm not at the fairgrounds early this time, I'll have to just turn around and go home." Seized with a new sense of urgency, Jack stepped out of the trees, scrambled up the side of the swale, and found the iron rail with his boot. Then, high on the heady promise of a day of freedom, both arms extended and as sure-footed as a tightrope walker, he began the 3-mile trip north. But within a few yards, he zagged over between the rails and began a steady, mile-gobbling lope, each footfall landing squarely on every tie. Only a few feet from the rear entrance of the Springfield County Fairgrounds, Jack pulled Rufus in next to him and kneeled down behind the empty ticket booth to catch his breath. The walls were plastered with posters, one of them featuring a drawing of a Curtiss Pusher airplane, banking into a sharp turn. The copy read, "Ace high. Wiley McCullough gives an exposition of the flying machine. 11 o'clock, Grassfield Arena, seating limited." Next to it was a sign that listed fairground hours and ticket prices with the disclaimer, "Children under 12 free with paid adult admission." Jack had been sneaking off to the county fair since he was 10, and he always bluffed his way in by tagging along behind a family with a handful of kids. But he was pushing 14 now, and over the last year it sprouted up almost shoulder high to Big Jim. "Ain't no way I can pass off this go-round," he said to Rufus. "Gotta slip in before someone mans the gate. You go on now." He gestured back the way they'd come, gave the dog a two-handed push, and rose to his feet. Rufus sat on his lean haunches and put on a soulful face. Jack began to back away, darting a quick glance over his shoulder. A motor car had pulled into the parking lot off the highway. Rufus whined, "Have it your way then, but you stay, hear me? Got no time for your shenanigans." Jack crept from cover and made a dash for the narrow gap next to the gate.